Language is full of pitfalls, traps, and trip-ups, and there's no shortage of people all too happy to jump on the journalist who makes a poor choice of words. But exactly which words and phrases are best to be avoided is sometimes a matter of opinion.
We certainly knew this one was coming.
I am announcing that I'm running for president of the United States.
Sorry, Ted Cruz, you've got no chance. That was John Cassidy's take in The New Yorker. But what stood out was his reasoning. To many Americans, Cruz is the uppity loudmouth who helped bring the federal government to a halt. Uppity? Using a word with racial overtones to describe a Latino politician led Cassidy to apologize for having overlooked the word's disturbing historical connotations. That's the same defense invoked by the Boston Herald's Jerry Holbert last year after his unfortunate Obama cartoon referencing watermelon.
I didn't think of it at all when I did the cartoon. I mean, it was completely innocent.
Holbert also apologized, but that doesn't mean the word police are always right.
I thought using one device would be simpler, and obviously it hasn't worked out that way.
In the wake of Hillary Clinton's email flap, a group of her supporters is now putting the media on notice with a list of 13 descriptors they call sexist, including polarizing, calculating, insincere, ambitious, entitled, secretive, and tone-deaf. How about give me a break? So here's the moral. Don't let the partisans push you around, but don't come off like this guy.
That formal invitation you sent by your wife, I think that was very wise of you.
In other words, think twice, speak once.
That show just couldn't exist anymore.
No.
I got called to task on the radio last week for using the word thug. Somebody told me that has racial overtones. And I pushed back. I said, no. And then David Bower used it the other day describing the Bolger trial, talking about thugs that were. Yeah, I said, David, did you know that had a racial connotation? He said, no, I'm not having any of that. And that's the way I felt. Just because somebody says something has that doesn't mean it does. That's not the derivation of the word. And to say that it's secretive or polarizing, that's become just an overused word. Period. But it's not sexist.
Look, anybody watching us, listening on the radio, reading stuff has an absolute right, if they are offended by a word they hear, to let us know about it and complain. And we have an absolute right we have an obligation if in fact we realize, even after the fact, that, yeah, that might have been offensive, or, gee, I wish I'd chosen another word. We have an absolute obligation to acknowledge that and, when appropriate, apologize. But we also have an absolute right to use the words we choose without preemptive strikes by a bunch of clueless partisans. That list of words was ridiculous.
Oh, I know.
I would like to see from them a list of words that we can use. I guess wonderful, transcendent, it's preposterous. And I agree with you. The message to them has to be, what did your father used to say to people who came up to him on the street?
Buzz off.
Buzz off.
I even read today on Huffington Post that charismatic has become a pejorative.
Really?
Yeah, it's a pejorative.
Why? Is it sexist?
It's kind of lowbrow. You've got
trivializing the person.
Exactly.
I see. Okay.
It's contextual, and I cannot stress that more. So some of the words that the clueless that you just referred to they're quite right, because in the context, these are words mostly directed at women candidates, not just Hillary Clinton. In this case, they're defending her. So I recall right away when she first got into the 2008 campaign, the story was done and they said she cackled. That is never a word that would be used for a man. Never, ever, ever would that be used. It's the context, and you have to know some history. I'm sorry, Cassidy, by the way, that was not an apology. If I have offended someone, he says, I'm so sorry. No, some people sincerely apologize. And that was a stupid thing. So I don't accept that as an apology. So, and he's long in the tooth enough to know better. Uppity does have racial overtones, and it's contextual. So know that when you sit down to write about it. And what did he do when he wanted to make his same point, snarky or not? He took out uppity, made his point, called the guy a loudmouth, moved on. So let's think about how we're using the words in the context. And the context means not just the situation, but who the words are describing. That means a lot. So in some instances, charismatic and articulate are offensive. So you gotta know the context.
I think as a journalist in a diverse society, you have to kind of be aware of the lay of the land and,
Absolutely.
and know that there are potential landmines out there. That said, I agree with John and with Emily. There are a lot of people who are out there who want to manipulate that tendency for partisan aims. And while cackle might be a word that's used primarily towards women, insincere and out of touch, which are some of the words that are on that list that you're not supposed to use about Hillary Clinton, are legitimate, complaints that you can make about a political candidate.
Gender neutral.
Yeah, gender neutral. And I think it's pretty dangerous in a way if you start taking a lot of words off the table. And I think in a gray area, you want to assume that people are not operating out of.
Please understand, I'm not saying take those off the table. I'm not agreeing with that. But I'm saying that let's pay attention to the context. And if we look, and a month after she announces, every time you use the word, I don't know, insincere and out of touch, is only applied to her and other women candidates, let's review what we're doing. I think that's like,
fair enough.
Okay.
But I think the barrier to that has to be pretty high. I think in a gray area, we should assume that people are not acting in a sexist way. And if there's other evidence to that point, then we should look at it. But in general, people should try to express themselves in as free a ways as they can. And, in the British press, they're a lot less sensitive or a lot less concerned about this whole line of argument than we are. And it makes for a more vibrant and less restrained way of talking about things.
Dan, you trying to choose your words here?
One thing that occurs to me is that once you can fake sincerity, you have it made. I agree with everything everybody said, so let me throw out one that drives me up a wall. When you hear somebody described as dignified, you know that the person's African American.
Yes.
Every single
No,
time.
or articulate.
Or articulate,
There you go.
but people have brought up articulate. Dignified is the one that drives me out of my mind. And,
All right.
There you go.
So that's
Duly
my
noted.
contribution.